In this training video, we'll cover the process of creating and modifying charts in MarketSight. Most charts in MarketSight are based on crosstabs, which means you must first create the crosstab that will provide the underlying data for the chart, and then you can create the chart. One type of chart that is not based on a crosstab is the scatter plot. Scatter plots are based on data views. A data view is a table containing raw data, which for a survey shows the survey responses. First, we'll take a look at the charts that are based on crosstabs. Let's go to the crosstab page and take a look at the crosstabs we've already created for this dataset. Let's open this one. To graphically represent a section of this crosstab with a chart, we click on the charting icon. We see the list of chart types on this menu. We can create a column, bar, line, pie, donut, or gauge chart by selecting the appropriate item. Note that not all chart types are always available. For example, a pie or donut chart can only be created for a single data series, which would be either a single column or a single row of data in the table. In addition, a gauge chart can only be created for a single data point, that is, where the table only contains one column value and one row value intersecting at a single data point. We'll choose the column chart option, and MarketSight will instantly create a column chart from this crosstab. The chart is displayed alongside the chart editor, which will enable us to customize this chart. If you've already set certain charting preferences in MarketSight in the options section, this chart may be formatted just the way you like it already. Or similarly, if you've modified your default PowerPoint template with your preferred settings, the chart may also be exactly what you want. We'll cover templates in another training video, but the default template controls how your charts will look online. Let's first take a look at the chart itself, and then we'll talk about the editor. For now, let's close the editor. The chart is given a name automatically based on the two variables that are being shown in the chart. The chart itself occupies the largest part of the screen. The legend is actually interactive. Clicking on any legend item will hide it, or show it if it's been hidden. This chart also has 4 additional interactive controls, enabling the viewer of the chart to select the variables and values that will be shown on the chart, as well as defining the filter and the chart sorting. The options on these 4 drop-down menus are sourced from the underlying crosstab we started from, which can be viewed by clicking here. Viewers of this chart can also change the chart type in this view by selecting one of these options. In addition, flipping variables will swap the variable on the axis with the variable in the legend. You can also print, export, save, and edit this chart using these menu items. Let's save this chart before we move on. Once the chart is saved, it can now be shared with others. Let's open the editor again and walk through the most common edits you might make. Let's take a look at each tab and summarize the settings available on each one. The first tab is the Design tab. This is where you modify the chart name, code, and description, and also where you select the chart type. The next tab, Data, enables you to select the column variable from the crosstab to be used in the chart, select the calculation and rounding settings, control whether or not the total is included in the chart, and select any additional row variables to be included in the chart. The options on this tab and all the other tabs in the chart editor are drawing upon information that is present in the original crosstab on which the chart is based. This is especially important to know when making charts interactive. There are 3 items that you can make interactive. They are the row variable, the column variable, and the filter. Because these boxes are checked, these drop-down menus appear on the chart, enabling any user to select different variables and values from the underlying crosstab. Let's make an important change here to make this control more useful to other users. Since we know that the columns in this crosstab are all demographic variables, we can label this drop-down something that reflects that. Let's call this Select a Demographic. The Colors tab lets you choose the colors for your chart. You can choose from the default template for your account by selecting this option. You can select a custom theme, which is stored in your individual user options here. Within that custom theme, you can also control each individual color in the chart. For example, if you want to change this color, just click on it and pick a new color. You can also choose one of the built-in themes listed below. The colors you select will be saved when you save this chart. The Display tab provides a number of options to control what is shown on the chart and how it is displayed. I'd like to point out an important setting on the Display tab and on the two Axis tabs on this window. They all have this checkbox, Use Chart Options from the template. This checkbox is very important. Unless you have changed these settings, this box is checked by default in your overall MarketSight options settings, and is therefore checked by default for every new chart you create. Checking this box tells MarketSight to use the settings that are contained in the default PowerPoint export template. We'll talk more about templates in another training video, but it's important to understand that if you want to alter the settings on any of these three tabs, you need to uncheck this box. You can see that when I uncheck this, all of the controls go from gray to black, meaning that they are now active. One other feature I'd like to point out that is common to these three tabs is the presence of the blue and green asterisks. They are each there to indicate which display or export formats will be affected by each control. For example, changing the setting for the placement of value labels will only affect exports to PowerPoint 2007 or 2010. It will not affect the online display or exports to PowerPoint 2003. This checkbox, Enable Chart Animation, controls the animation when the chart is displayed or updated. You'll also see this option for reversing the order of the legend values. Below these checkboxes, you'll see controls for the chart title here. Let's make the font size for our chart title a little larger. See how the chart on the right is updated in real time as I make changes? You can also format the value labels and the plot area. You'll notice that the chart will now show vertical and horizontal lines as well as a border around the chart area. You can also change the settings for the legend, sample size, filter details, and other choices related to multiple response variables. The Category Axis tab provides settings for controlling whether or not the axis is displayed, how the tick marks are displayed, and several different options for the axis labels. For this chart, let's make our axis value labels a little larger. The numeric axis is controlled by the Next tab. You can see that there are options here for controlling a number of different settings. You can set the minimum and maximum values on the axis by hand, or you can let MarketSight do it for you automatically. You can format the tick marks, and you can also format the fonts, type, and size of the axis labels, as well as the axis title. Once we've formatted the chart and we're happy with the way it looks, we should save it to preserve all of our changes. When we want to open this chart again, we can do that from the chart page here. Here's our chart. Click on the name to open it, or use right-click or the action bar to edit, share, or export the chart, or perform any of these actions. Now let's take a look at scatter plots. This chart type is created from a data view instead of a crosstab because it is showing actual data points versus calculations based on those data points. We'll start by opening a data view that we've already created. This data view contains 3 column variables and also has a filter set to show only a subset of our data. To create a scatter plot from this data, click on either of these charting icons here, and MarketSight will create the scatter plot. MarketSight automatically places these icons next to the 2 columns that will be included in the scatter plot. MarketSight selects the first 2 columns containing numeric data and ignores the other column in the data view. It's ignoring this column because it is a text variable that can't be plotted on a chart. Let's create the scatter plot. On this chart, you can see that we have plotted the first numeric column variable on the horizontal axis and the next numeric variable on the vertical axis. To flip these, simply change the order of the columns in the underlying data view. By default, all the data points from the data view are shown on the scatter plot. However, you can change the range of each axis by dragging these handles, further filtering the view of the scatter plot. Scatter plots can be printed, exported, shared, and saved just like any other chart in MarketSight. Once a scatter plot is saved, it can be accessed from the Charts page with the other charts. This concludes this training video on creating and modifying charts.